Hello and welcome to Widow Talk, real conversations about the stuff people just don't talk about. I'm Karen Stapleton and today we're talking to Emma Hopkins-Curry. Emma was married to her husband Trent and had two daughters aged 6 and 10 when Trent passed away unexpectedly after routine surgery in 2012. Emma was left to chart
2013.
2013. Oh my God, I got that wrong. Sorry about that. Emma was left to chart her and the girls' way through grief and find a way forward into her new life. Emma has since repartnered with her beautiful partner Dale, and they have a very happy, crazy, large blended family going on now. And today we're going to be talking about being widowed and Emma making this huge decision in her life to redefine her career and go back to study full time as a new widow. So, hi Emma, and welcome.
Hi Karen, thanks for having me.
Yeah, lovely to talk to you. Let's get into it. Emma, can you tell me a bit about your life with Trent and the girls and becoming widowed?
My life with Trent, it feels like 100 years ago. It was amazing. Yeah, we had a crazy life, very, very fun-filled, very jam-packed. Very glad that it was super fast-paced and we did everything really quickly and really soon. In retrospect, that was the best thing we could have done because we jammed a lot into that sort of nearly 10 years. Yeah, we had an amazing life. We had our daughters. We moved up to the Dandenong Ranges. That was a massive thing we did together. I'm a Westie, we're in a different state, but in Melbourne, I'm a Westie and he was an Eastie, so very unusual. And I moved out east and we lived up in the mountains and up in the forest, and it was absolutely beautiful. And yes, up until July of 2013, when it all went horribly pear-shaped.
Yeah.
Sadly,
yes.
Mm.
So, what did you do for work before you became widowed?
Up here, I worked for the council. So I worked for the local council out in the Yarra Ranges, and I basically worked customer service. I had been working retail for like 25 years or something, whilst I travelled. Just work, travel.
Mm-hmm.
And then I landed this job, and I absolutely loved it. And I think I'd only been there about a year when Trent passed away. And I was very lucky to have made some really amazing friendships there because these ladies really supported me very much. I still meet up with them now, actually. They're gorgeous. They supported me a lot through that time. So did the council, actually. They were very supportive to keep me on casually and whatever hours I needed and just to keep me afloat. And yeah, I was very lucky.
So, Trent's death was traumatic for all of you. What were some of the things that you did with the girls to find your way through grief in those early days?
Yeah, it's tough because, we all suffer PTSD from Trent's death because it was so sudden. He had a broken ankle and just had ankle surgery. So, we went from just nursing him through recovering from ankle surgery to coming back from the hospital without him one day, and it was horrendous. He basically lost his life in front of us at home, and was taken away in an ambulance, and they did try and save his life for about the next 16 hours. But essentially we were told later that he was gone before the bottom of the mountain, basically. So I don't know how you pick yourself up after you are just trying to work out how we're going to survive him not being able to work for the next sort of 6 to 12 months, or maybe 6 to 8 months, because he'd had actual surgery. So it was going to be a fairly long recovery, to suddenly trying to get our heads around never seeing him ever again. The girls just didn't, I don't think they believed it. I guess in a way it was probably good that they were in the hospital when we had to say goodbye. And as traumatic and horrendous as that was, I don't think they would have believed that he was gone had we not had that experience. So awful, horrible, revolting experience. But I guess in retrospect, lucky that we were there to have that kind of closure. You don't realize at the time that it is, but it is later on down the track. Because I feel like there are a lot of kids out there that don't believe, don't wholeheartedly believe that that person's physically gone. Whereas my girls really did. So yeah, the grief is such an unusual stage, and we're still going through it. I feel in a way sometimes my girls grieve more now, 7 years later, than they did then, because they're finally at an age to kind of understand it. Back then it was surviving every night without him putting them to bed. We'd tag team. One night I'd put Ruby to bed and he'd put Puppy to bed, and then the next night we'd swap. So we did that every single night without fail. And so I think just those losses were the greatest losses for them at 6 and 10. They were the greatest losses.
Yeah.
Whereas now the greatest losses are, not having that other parent to go to and talk to and confide in and talk to about boy problems. They're 13 and nearly 17 now. So, what they'd talk about now with him would be very different to what they would have spoken to him about then.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess also now it's that for them as they're getting older, the grief around the milestones that he's not there for. Whereas before it was, as you said, he's not there for that day-to-day routine stuff that makes up the life when you're a younger child.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, anniversaries are always really hard, like birthdays, and I mean, you know better than anybody. Christmases, birthdays, milestones like 16th and 13th. We just did both of those in the last 12 months. But I do find that it's really the day-to-day. It's really the boring day-to-day stuff where they miss him the absolute most.
Yeah.
Because he was just hilarious, and so he could just make any shit situation seem easier to bear. Yeah. And so I feel like they miss him the most in that area. Yeah.
So tell me a bit about meeting Dale and blending your families together.
Yes. So I met Dale 2 years after Trent had passed away. And we kind of bonded over death, which sounds really morbid. His brother had passed away in 2013, and as had Trent, and we struck up a conversation about that, how morbid. But the funny thing was, within 10 minutes we were finishing each other's sentences, because we had this complete understanding of what a horrid thing it is to lose somebody so special and important and wonderful in your life, but then to have to keep on living life when most people around you have felt that loss, but life just continues on. But for the families of those people, time stops that minute that they die. It doesn't continue, and we wonder why life has gone on, like why are people still getting up and going to work, and so we bonded immediately over that. And I feel like whatever grieving we hadn't done, which we'll grieve forever, I'm sure, we started to do together. So we bonded, we met, we bonded over grief, and we started a relationship based on grief, but not in a negative way. I feel like we've been together 5 years next week, and in a way I feel like we've done more growing in that time than I could have ever imagined doing, because we've supported each other through that the whole time. So yeah, it's a different love story. It's a slightly different love story than the first one. But it's beautiful.
Yeah, but the thing with that is that, and what we often say, even, and you understand this obviously within our broader widow community, that feeling that someone can just get what you're going through just helps immeasurably, where you don't have to explain why you're feeling the way you're feeling, you're just feeling it. And so I can understand that, that bonding over over grief. Was he also understood it from his perspective of losing such a close loved one himself?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, it's just an unsaid rule in this house when, death anniversaries, anniversaries, birthdays, Christmas, anything is coming up. It's just a total understanding from him or from us that his family will be grieving, that Trent's family will be grieving, that we will be grieving, that he will be grieving. And we all deal very differently. We always joke that he's an innie and we're an outie. We're a very outward family. Everything's been done loud and out.
Yeah.
And his is always the other way around. And that's okay. Like, there's no right and no wrong. It's just, it is what it is. So it's all accepting in this household, which is what makes it a really crazy, crazy household.
But works. But
it works. It seems to work. Touch wood.
So you met Dale, you're starting to forge this new life forward, and at what point did that little voice in the back of your head or that thing inside of you go, I need to be doing something else in my life around my career? So when did you get to that point, and how did you navigate through that?
I think it was probably about 2 years in. So, when I met Dale 2 years later, I felt like that was about 5 years too soon. So, I was probably toughest on myself. And so it really was a couple of years into the relationship where I started to, really almost feel independent again. And well, I'd kept my independence obviously, but feel like maybe it's time for me. Maybe there's some time for me now. And I had always wanted to study, the equivalent of community services, straight out of high school. It would have been welfare studies a long time ago. And I had done, when Trent was still alive, I'd done my certificate 3 and 4, and I'd done a diploma in community services, all through sort of neighbourhood houses and community houses, very slowly, because I had left school pretty early and hadn't studied in about 20 plus years. So it was about the 2-year mark that I started looking beyond a diploma, and I really didn't. I was looking for work actually, and I realised that a diploma wasn't going to cut it for what I wanted to do, and I realised that I would need a degree. And I discovered that if I went back to TAFE and I did a higher education degree, which is a little bit different from university, that I could get the degree that I wanted through doing a lot more placement hours, a lot more hands-on stuff, but without the major exams, which my PTSD would have prevented me from doing, because I can't even remember my shopping list 99% of the time. So it was really, I think what enticed me was what was on offer. I found this local TAFE. They had only just started offering it. It had only, I think it was 1 year in actually. When I started, it had only been running for 1 year. And they were offering this higher education ability to get a degree, as long as you'd done a diploma or the equivalent of, and it sold me. And Dale literally pushed me. In fact, if he hadn't pushed me, I don't think I would have done it, because it was full time. And so I knew that I could continue my casual work, and it's casual / part-time, but being a full-time student at 30, whatever I was at the time, 30
something.
38. I know I got my degree the week of my 40th birthday. Literally best 40th present ever. So I think I was 38. So yeah, if he'd not pushed me and said, I've got you, like I've got you sorted, I probably wouldn't have done it. But I did it. So yeah.
And so how did you manage? So you had Dale there incredibly supporting you and pushing you to say, you can do it, but we can do it. So how did you manage the day-to-day study? So you still got your casual work, but you still got, doing full-time study is a massive thing to undertake. I understand that. So
yeah.
How did you manage it?
He probably would say I did not manage it at all. And I'm pretty sure my children would agree. It really did take me the whole first year to find my feet. I got a tutor, like I got myself an online tutor literally to support me through. I had to go back and learn how to write a report. Like I had no idea. Academically, didn't have a clue what I was doing. So it wasn't just a matter of turning up to school, doing my hours and then coming home and doing my work. I didn't even know how to do my work.
Yeah.
Diploma wasn't the academic level that I suddenly needed to do. So yeah, there was so much stress going on in my brain that year, but somehow we made it work. So, I think that first year, Dale's support was cooking, supporting me with the kids at night, letting me come into this room and tear my hair out and Google how to report right for about 17 hours until I knew what I was semi-doing before I'd even attempt the report in the first place.
Yeah.
But I started to find my feet, and by year 2, I think which was the last year,
Mhm.
we just found a bit of a groove with it.
So, did your grief make you question your ability to make this huge decision?
Yes, I think the grief makes you question everything, actually. Um, yeah, yeah. I think grief for me, it either makes you make a decision without thinking at all whatsoever, or it makes you think way too much. So the degree, no, I think that it was pretty well thought out, planned out, well considered, but I had no idea what I was in for because I didn't realize, after 25 years of being out of school, just how behind I was, how much, even technology had forged ahead without me. And also how much, having PTSD and memory loss and all that sort of stuff would affect just doing the simplest of things. And as I was saying to you the other day, I wrote every single thing that the tutor said down to the point where I had, like 10 A4 books filled with notes from the tutors that I never even went back and read. But I thought that if I wrote it, I would remember it, somehow. I had the sorest hand in the universe from writing, but I had all these methods, and yeah, I feel like the grief is what made me have these strange little processes, lists upon lists and strange little processes. And I guess if you put them into little, compartments, you feel like you can just tackle each bit as it comes, and it's not as overwhelming as if you take it all in one gulp, if you get my drift.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
just how I dealt with everything in my life at that point. Probably
So,
still do.
yeah. So doing those bite-sized chunks and just
Yeah.
task at a time rather than try to be overwhelmed by it all.
Yes. I'd never, probably for a minute during the whole course, thought I'd finish it. So maybe that's what got me through. It was just like 24 hours at a time,
Yeah.
next report, next assignment, or just, unit at a time, because, just finishing a unit was a task.
Mm.
And if I did it that way, it was achievable. But if I looked at it as a degree, I would just about fall over because it was of the overwhelm. And then, coming home to grieving children and their school problems and everything else that was going on at the time. And then Dale's got 3 boys, so every second weekend it's a household of 7, and pretty much every second weekend I could do no work whatsoever because it was chaos and mayhem. But all of those things, just
Yeah.
having to take everything into consideration, I think.
So, um, one of the things that I certainly struggle with as a widow, more than probably what I ever did previously, is keeping my own self-doubts at bay. And how did you keep those at bay?
Lots of counselling. Yes.
Yeah, good.
I've always, yeah, look, I am, anyone that knows me will know I'm a big promoter of, I think, counselling, psychology, group therapy, animal therapy, I don't really care what it is. It's not, it doesn't have to be clinical. For me, it's in whatever way, bushwalking, I don't even care what it is. Self, a little bit of self support, um, self care. I think without that, I would have gone crazy. But also, I find that I feel, and I still feel this way, that it's so important to go and offload to somebody that isn't related in any way, shape, or form to your home or your family, because you feel elated once you've walked away, but also there's no guilt because you've not
Mm.
dumped it on somebody that are then going to go home to or see. And although back in those days, I would debrief with Dale almost every day on the way home on the phone. And he would debrief with me as well before we'd meet at home and then not talk about it in front of the children. I think it's really important to filter through the big things with, a professional, but even no matter who they are, just somebody that's a little removed from the household.
So someone it's that whole concentric circle theory, isn't it? That
Yeah.
we we vent out of the circle, we don't vent into the circle. So that whole, if you have your family in that circle, sometimes it's good to have someone removed from that you can debrief and vent with.
Exactly. Perfectly put.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. No, but that circle theory I didn't know until a few years into my grief. And when I heard it, it was like a light bulb moment for me and then that helped. It's certainly something that's helped me, I think, moving forward with other people in my life who are going through their own things, that I understand now that, you know, you don't add and vent to them when they're going through their own trauma. You remove that from them. Yeah. So it's certainly something that
Absolutely. Makes
resonated
sense,
with
doesn't
me.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that some people just find it harder to talk to people that are not in their circle. And I
Yeah.
really do understand that. But you are so right. You do have to wonder if they've been through a trauma also. Yeah. Are you just adding to their trauma? It's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is a
Mhm.
tough one, particularly when, our people are our people, and we've got this lifetime of shared care essentially with each other. And you don't
Yeah,
want to pull away from that. And when we're in the middle of it, we don't see it. So when we're in our own grief and trauma, we don't see it. So I think sometimes when we
absolutely.
start to move out of it, it's good to take it from a different perspective if we can. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree. Counselling and being able to talk and debrief are certainly some of the things that have helped me along the way as well, to be able to find that way forward in whatever way that I was searching for at the time.
Yeah.
So you finished the study, and not only did you finish it, Emma, you smashed it. Tell us what you actually achieved. And I know you're going to be embarrassed about this, but it's something to be proud of, my love.
Yes, yeah, it is. So, so I was nominated for Degree Student of the Year through the TAFE that I was studying at in 2017, and I won it, which was it was an amazing feat. And I do think, in retrospect, yeah, if I just try and be a little humble, I do realize it was an amazing feat. I think that if I look back at what I was going through at the time and the complexities that were happening in this household with my children and my stepchildren and my partner and his family is grieving and my family's grieving, and holding down a job and a household and a modern family and stepchildren, and you know I kind of look at my household as four families because I have my father-in-law and his partner and my mother-in-law and her partner and then my parents and then Dale's parents, and that's, I adore them all. There's a big overwhelm of, people that are part of my cohort that I keep in touch with very regularly. So I do look back at that time and wonder how I balanced all of that and managed to knock out a degree at the same time. And I figure perhaps that's why I was nominated in the first place. But yeah, I won it in 2017. It was just the biggest honor, especially considering some of the people that I was studying with, that I will never forget some of these people, because of course when you're studying community services, um, you're studying alongside some very interesting people with incredible stories that have lived through some things that you can't even imagine. And even speaking from a widow's perspective, stories that you cannot even imagine having lived through. It was the biggest honour. Yeah, the greatest honour.
Well, I want to wish you congratulations because I know it when you explain it that way, and certainly I think on top of that, as you shared before, going back to study after not doing it for so long and at a level that you've never achieved, on top of everything going on, it is a huge achievement. So, I believe it's something you should be very proud of. So,
Thank,
congratulations.
thank you.
And tell us, what are you working in now? Because you're no longer community service at the council.
No, no. At the end of my degree, I was completing my placement, and I went into dual diagnoses into a youth drug and alcohol organisation, working with young people that are substance affected, but that also suffer mental health. And I'm still there 2 years later, and I absolutely love it. Yeah, I was just very lucky to land an incredible position, and then I was even luckier to land a position there, a permanent position there. So I never thought I'd end up working in youth because I had youth. I was like, I've got youth at home. I don't need youth at work. But here I am 2 years later, still working in youth. And I absolutely love it. I wouldn't have picked it, but I feel like it picked me, and I'm still here, and I don't think I'll be leaving it anytime soon.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Um, so looking back over the last, I don't know, so what, 7 years, um, is there anything that you would do differently if you had your time over again?
No, no, I don't. No, I often think about that question, and I actually I often think about that question in relation to my whole life. And I was a high school dropout and all of those things, and young mum and yada yada yada. I wouldn't change anything. As hard as life might be, it is what it is, and it creates who we are. How, if we changed any of it, as sad as some parts of it are, would we be who we are? I don't think so. So no, I wouldn't change any of it. I don't think I don't think any of us widows would. I think that we all, probably drank too much, and we all, there were lots of decisions that we did in those first few months, in those first year, maybe year or two, the crazy widow purchases that I was talking about the other day, like my caravan, all of those things that we do. I still don't look back and think, oops, I really shouldn't have done that, because it's part of what's got us to where we are right now. And yeah, it's all
Good and
learning.
bad.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. So on that note, you spoke a little bit about it by just living what you're living at the time and not living with regret.
Mhm.
Um, what advice would you give other young widows who might be contemplating going back to study or making a big career change? You've lived that in your own way, in your own experience. What are some of the things that you would pass on to them as advice?
Yes, I would say please find a way to do it. Yeah, I would say definitely do it. And I think there's always a way to study, even if you think that there isn't. I was very lucky to be able to go back and do a degree, and perhaps had I not met Dale, I wouldn't have done it when the kids were so young. I would have done it eventually, and maybe I would have waited a little bit longer till they could, perhaps got themselves to and from school. That would have made a big difference. But back in the day when I started studying and my kids were really young, I did my study through community houses and neighbourhood houses. And it's the most nurturing and beautiful environment. And so if there's a way for people to go back after 20 years or however long it's been and start small and do, like a certificate 1 or 2 in something, just to test the waters. And then, I did that to start with, and I loved it. And I realized that school was not what it was for me in year 10 and 11, where
Yeah.
I absolutely did not want to be there, apart from at lunchtime when I could hang out with my friends. It was actually amazing, and I was sucking in every minute, and I loved education because I was older and I was there because I wanted to be. So I continued with the neighbourhood houses and the community houses, and I completed my Cert 3 and 4 and then my diploma. Had I been able to go back and get a degree in a neighbourhood house, I would have done it. But TAFE was the next best thing, and it was just as nurturing and beautiful an environment as the neighbourhood houses. So I would absolutely say find a way, even if it's baby steps, part-time, nighttime, from home. Life is just way too short, and we don't know how long it is, so why wait?
Yeah. Don't give up on those dreams.
No,
Yeah.
definitely not.
Well, Emma, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. It's such a huge thing to do on top of grief and everything going on in your life with your family at the time. And how you navigated through all of that experience is, I know, going to be helpful for other people out there who, as we know, sometimes are overwhelmed by it all and can't find their own way forward for a while. So sharing your story, I know, will help them as well in the future. Um, can I also wish you and Dale and your beautiful crazy family every happiness into the future as you keep moving your way forward and grabbing hold of the adventures that are to come for you all. Um, Please check out our website at firstlight.org for more resources on being widowed or how to help people in your life who have been widowed. You can also find other of our Widow Talk videos on our website or on our YouTube channel. And we just want to say thank you and well done, Emma, and congratulations. And congratulations, everyone out there, as you find a way forward every day. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks,
Bye.
Karen. Bye.